Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask a heck of a lot of questions. You can also become a bitter pill or a spoonful of sugar or the new tier, the medicine going down, and reference Mary Poppins. Why not? Because that Mary Poppins fits my personality, if you know me, don't you? But hey, man, we got some fabulous swag. We got a T-shirt that came out really cool and all of that. So you can go on to patreon.com/The Bitter Truth and see all that stuff today. Good friend of the show, dear friend of mine for a lot of years now, Mike Melia is joining us, and we're going to have a little chat about some various and sundry things, and that's kind of about that. How are you, Mike? What's going on?
Hey, Abe, what's happening, partner?
Just trying to, maintain the COVID beard and trying out different facial hairs like Iron Man.
Well, I reached out to you about this particular episode, and I said, you're always interviewing people. What about, somebody interviews, and that's somebody being like me? What about I interview you? And so our listeners can even learn more about you and sort of get more of a flavor of who they're listening to when they're hearing you interview people. What I'm after is helping to give them some insights and then just having a little bit of fun.
Yeah, man, sure.
And part of that is me learning more about you because, we've known each other about 10 years or so. I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think we met in Cancun the very first time.
It might have happened during one of my blackouts, but yeah, I think so.
I think we were I ran into you and our buddy Jerry and we were in a part of the hotel that was sort of below the surface, like one of the beach palaces or moon palaces.
Right.
And it was below the surface, and we were back checking out this whole spa area that was vacant.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember that, but I didn't really know you at the time, and so I was introduced. And one of the things that and I know you're going to find this a common situation, but one of the things that I had difficulty with when I first met you was pronouncing your last name.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's nothing else indicative about you that you're just not another guy grew up in America somewhere, probably California.
Yeah.
Except for your last name. And so my question there is when you were growing up, that last name had actually have some kind of imprint in your general, because I know my last name's Melia.
Right.
And they made fun of me for that.
Oh yeah,
and that's
well, kids are fuckheads. Kids are fuckheads. They'll make fun of you. If you're Smith, they'll make fun of you. They're just looking for something. Right.
They'll come up with a good Smith thing. Right.
But and the thing is when I was a kid, I grew up in the same area my whole life till I was about 18. Right. So from pretty much toddler age to I got out of high school, and it was one of those things where you went to a certain elementary school. My town only had one junior high, so all the far-flung elementaries got together in junior high, so that's where a lot of us got to really know each other too. And then you go through high school together, and it's just first day of class, the lady says your name, and I got the whole, Ibrahim Abdelhadi thing going. And so it wasn't just the last name, and Abe was a nickname. Abe was a nickname that I got on my block for some reason. I had a lot of folks from Kansas in LA. And I don't know if they came to work at General Motors or what they were there for. My one friend's dad ran a health food store for a lot of years. You could relate to that. And he had this giant center and this attic, and we used to go, fuck about there all the time. But his mother, ever since I was a little kid, used to call me Abraham. She never called me Ibrahim. And then my other friend's mom started calling me Abraham. And then I got to about 4th or 5th grade, and one of my teachers just started calling me Abe, just kind of, and I didn't think to correct it. And then all the kids started calling me that. And then I get to high school, and I was just like, all right, maybe. But, I would always get the sand nigger jokes and the camel jockey jokes and the towel head shit. And, and the 70s was weird because the Arab oil embargo was happening. I was about 11 years old. And this is where I kind of learned early, although I didn't figure it out until I got older. Kids do what their parents teach them,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like 10, 11 years old. This is 74, 75. 73. And I must have had more fistfights than Muhammad Ali before the 6th grade, because there's always some fucking guy, like they see it on the news. dad might have made some comment, you know, and I grew up with a lot of Latinos and, you know, quite a few black kids and whatever. So it wasn't like we were all just this white place. Right. And anyway, long story short, you know, I would see that. I'm kind of going, well, where did he get that? Later on, as I got older, I'm like, well, where would he get that idea? You know, and it's like his dad's watching the news. He's pissed off at those towel heads, you know, fucking with the oil prices, and he's got to wait every other day to get oil or gasoline rather, and he can't get it today, and they can't, you know, go on vacation now or whatever. And so you know, everyone's like stealing license plates. You remember that racket, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, so I always kind of came up not thinking I was white, you know, till I got to college. And then I realized I could pass for white. And it wasn't until people found out my last name and then they would, you know, get quizzical. And I had a lot of friends in school. It wasn't like I was lonesome or anything, but, you know, some people had a problem with it. Some girls had a problem with it. Some girls that I dated had a problem with it, you know, and it's not hard to hide. I mean, they just start asking you these really random questions like, do you think you have a recessive dark gene? Like if we had a baby, and you're kind of going, well, fuck, that's kind of a fucked up question. You're like, you know, you're 22 years old. You're kind of going, I just thought we kind of got along, you know, but, but it wasn't a terribly common occurrence. I mean, the Arab shit, I got a lot. I mean, my brother gets it too. It's worse because he doesn't my brother doesn't have a white sounding nickname. He's Anwar, and he goes by Anwar, you know. And he gets a lot of crap. He's a doctor and he gets a lot of crap too. So, but yeah, it's kind of a long answer to your question, but yeah, that's kind of how it went down when I was a kid.
All right. So, you know, and so like, by the time you got to college, it was different though. I mean, when people would find out that you were other than, but they were more curious and they were.
Yeah. Curious and kind of didn't give a shit. Yeah. Curious and kind of didn't give a shit too. Like, you know, by the time we're in our 20s, a lot of people anyway, you know, they just were, you know, they'd ask about it. And the only people that ever had a problem with it were the ones that really had a problem with it. You know, you can't outrun your own psychology.
So when you became like, as you got out of your teenage years and when you went off to college in LA?
Yeah. In the area. Yeah. I went to a junior college first. My folks moved when I got out of high school. So I was living at home still. So first couple of years I was at a junior college in Riverside. And then I was looking to transfer, and I ran track there for a year, and I was going to do it again for another year, I thought. And then I got into a band, and that's when I was like, I don't want to run track. I mean, I did, but I also was like, I'm not going to get a scholarship off this shit. I'd rather play in a band, you know? And so I did enough to letter, but you know, it wasn't like I was a pole vaulter. So it wasn't like I was doing any amazing, I wasn't Billy Olson. I was doing about 14 feet at the time, 14 and a half. So it wasn't like I was going to, you know, like Ohio State was looking at me, you know? So I got into a band, and that was that, you know. But yeah, it was. And so
you play the drums?
Yeah, at the time I was playing drums.
Now you still drum?
Oh yeah. Well, I kind of took it back up seriously. I would jam here and there with some people, but about 3 years ago, I got into the drum kit.
Okay, cool.
Just wanted to get into a cover band. I didn't want to write songs anymore. I wasn't trying to be a rock star anymore. I just wanted to play music, have a good time. But it took me a couple of years to find guys that didn't want to play Freebird, right? So the stuff that we're doing now is fun. I'm having a good time. We wrote the set list. So it's not like I walked into a band. They only had 4 or 5 songs together. So we were picking these songs as we go. So it's fun. We're playing everything from Rage Against the Machine to The Clash to Cheap Trick to, you know, we're playing Mountain. We're playing Mississippi Queen. Just real riff heavy, thumpy songs that, you know, you can hear on the radio, but you never hear in clubs, you know?
Yeah. So Mississippi Queen is song totally imprinted. I got totally imprinted.
Oh, fuck yeah. Leslie West that guy was way underrated, man.
First time I ever dropped LSD, I was about 18 years old. It was a summer.
Yeah.
And I went to a party, and they only had 2 albums. And one was Themes of an Imaginary Western. I think that was the name of the album.
Wow.
With Mountain. And of course, the song that kept playing over and over again, Mississippi Queen.
Yeah.
So and what a great riff-driven song. So you
were born right, man. That guy's a hell of a drummer, but you were born right, dude. We've talked about the Beatles and stuff before. You were born right.
You know, except for now that I'm old now, you know, I'm old, but now we're looking at the end of the world. I guess it's okay.
Well, as long as you're healthy.
Okay, so next area is and right around music. Now, And we'll come back to your book in a little bit.
That's cool.
Because you published a novel a few years back, about 5 years ago right now.
Yeah.
All Together Now, which is sort of the same name as a Beatles song. And we can talk about that in a little bit.
Well, it's not but sort of. It is a Beatles song. I did name it.
Beatles song.
It was on purpose.
You
yeah.
Did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was playing my guitar pick. It just popped out of my hand.
Oh, there you go.
Well, look, I sit right here. This is my little COVID stance. Over here is one guitar.
Nice.
And then over there is an electric guitar.
Nice.
So I got them both. My son moved to Singapore, and before he left, I went to visit him. And he said, Dad, I don't know, how much playing you're doing, but he gave me a case of guitar strings.
Wow.
Half electric and half acoustic. I'm like,
nice.
So every time a guitar string breaks here, I don't worry about it because I still got half a case left.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of guitar strings sitting around too.
So here's what one of the things I read your book. Now I was on the road when it came out, so I kept not having a place I could get it mailed to, right?
Right.
So finally I got it mailed ahead of me, and then I read it while I was still on the road. It was fun to do that. But here's my question. Echo and the Bunnymen. Okay?
Yeah.
I had never known that band.
Right.
I was never exposed to that band until I read your book.
Okay.
And then I thought you had just made up some band.
Oh, yeah.
Until then, after you went around a few times about them, I said, you know what? Let me look them up. And then I went and looked them up. And that was a whole different experience.
Yeah. They were... Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, you're living in L.A. How'd you come across those guys?
Well, they're a Liverpool band, and they're big enough to actually have their own Liverpool tour, like the Beatles. They're the big.
Right.
They're the second biggest band out of Liverpool. And
that's big.
They came out. I was a senior, but I didn't get into them till about midway through college. Right? They started getting a little more airplay on K-Rock and stuff, and then they owned LA, man. I mean, they would play these they would play these tours about 3-4 years in a row before they flamed out. And they got back together subsequently, but the drummer got killed in a bus accident. A lot of crazy shit happened. But they would do these tours like these 6,000 seat arenas, and they would Universal Amphitheater one night, the next night they're Pacific, the next night they're Irvine, all sold out, and everyone lost their shit over these guys. And just really good songwriters. I just dug what they did. I dug the singer, and but I got into them through a mutual friend, engineer guy. Well, I'll say his name because I don't want to get him in trouble. But he was the guy who turned me on to around 1983, and they were out for a couple of years. I think they had 3 albums out at that time, and so anyway, that's how I kind of got into them, and they just were one of my bigger influences because you come up as a kid in the 70s and you listen to Led Zeppelin and the Who, which is still my favorite band, and so, but then we started getting into our thing. We kind of like the whole alternative scene in the 80s was us, the Gen X guys or whatever, we wanted to do our thing, and so here are these guys at the Smiths and Echo and to a large degree U2 before they got huge. Your Sex Pistols, The Clash, all these bands that you're gravitating toward because they're more your age. They're saying kind of what you think, and so it just good music doesn't really, in my opinion, that's why the Beatles work and why the Who works, because they're not dated. They're not making Nixon jokes and shit, right? They're singing about these big themes that at the time you hear it and you go, yeah, man, won't get fooled again. I get that, right? And Missy Mountain Hop, I get that. And then you start getting into your own thing, and The Killing Moon or Gods Will Be Gods or Heads Will Roll. Those songs spoke to me huge, especially when I was kind of coming out of religion. And so that's the short of that. But but the book, what I did was, and the reason I called the book All Together Now was because I realized when I got to the book, I had all these lines from these songs from different bands. I had everybody from Television to Echo and the Bunnymen to the Who, and I realized I got to the end of the book, I didn't have a Beatles song in there. And I was trying to think, can I put a Beatles song in there? And I started going through there, and I was like, those words won't work. That line works because of that thing. And then I thought, well, fuck it. I'll call the book All Together Now, which is kind of how I wish the Middle East would end up anyway. And then that was sort of the name, the reason I got that name.
Well, so interesting. You've already answered like a few other kind of items I've had. Like now I know that the Who is your favorite band.
Yeah, I don't rate bands.
I might have actually guessed that actually.
Well, and here's the thing, I stopped my mid-20s. I stopped rating bands. So my line has always been the Who's my favorite band. Everyone else is tied for second. Because it's like if a couple nights ago I was home, and I just started binge watching the Rolling Stones. And I got this bug up my ass about Gimme Shelter. Suddenly I wanted to see every version of Gimme Shelter. Of course I was stoned at the time, but I wanted to see every version of Gimme Shelter. And I was on YouTube for like an hour,
Wow.
Like
wow.
every chick that ever sang those parts, from Fergie to Patti LaBelle, like all the years. I just got a bug up my ass.
That ought to be a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's like to me, everyone's tied for second. Depends on the mood of the day. You're in a Zeppelin mood, you're in a Smiths mood, you're in a Clash mood, you just.
Well, one of the things I subscribe to at this point is YouTube Premium.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And the two things is there's no. I forgot that one of the features is there's no commercials.
Right.
So when I'm watching regular YouTube, it never stops me and pitches me something.
Right.
But then they also have this music thing where you put in one song, right, and it generates a whole playlist for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So when I put in earlier, when I decided that I was getting ready for this, I decided, check this out. I was an hour early because it said 3:30 and I'm on the East Coast and I never read 3:30 Central.
Oh, right? I'm sorry, man.
Hey, no, don't be sorry because that was an hour early. So I'm more beer into the interview than I planned on it.
Well, I'm on my second whiskey and soda, so we're good.
I also went and listened, put Echo and the Bunnymen into the playlist.
Yeah.
And some of the bands that they come up with was Bauhaus.
Yep.
Okay, their Bela Lugosi song.
Yeah. Bauhaus had a lot of songs, man.
Which I had never heard that song before.
Yeah.
And then of course there was a lot of Velvet Underground.
Yeah, big time.
And The Cure.
Yeah, and The Doors.
Right.
Yep.
So they generated that, and also of course Lou Reed.
Right.
And who's the British guy who I'm looking for? The space guy.
Oh, David Bowie.
David Bowie. Yeah, David Bowie.
The space guy.
You knew who it was. Come on.
That's so funny. Oh man.
And then for me, it's so interesting that same way because I can go back now and like dive deeper into bands that I only knew a little bit.
Right.
And then hear some of the depth of what was there. And of course, like you said earlier, I think I really was, like in my teenage years, was probably the most new bands that ever came into being.
Yeah.
From 1967 to 1972.
Oh, sure.
And so we wound up listening to all of them. Okay, so next. Oh, the Velvet Underground. They were in there too. Did I say that already?
Yeah, and they're one of my favorite bands, hands down.
Yeah, I love them too. Okay, so let's go back to your book while we mentioned it. You've got a signature line in the book, which is reminiscent of when I was reading the book, it was reminiscent to me of Kurt Vonnegut's, and so it goes.
Yeah, so there's that.
And there's that.
That was on purpose. Right. Yeah, I wanted to be Kurt Vonnegut really bad.
Oh, did you? So it was a Kurt Vonnegut nod, so to speak.
Yeah.
And what was that? Was that Slaughterhouse-5 or was that Sirens of Time?
That was Slaughterhouse-5.
Yeah.
So it goes petweet, he would say. The little bird singing.
So I was about 20, and I'm hitchhiking around the country, and I just plowed through everything that Vonnegut had written up until that point.
Wow.
So I went from Monkey House all the way to Sirens of Titan, Slaughterhouse-5, Good Morning, Mr. Rosewater.
Yeah.
Is that anyway?
And Juan Peters and Granfalloons and all those, yeah.
Yeah, no, before that one.
Okay.
So at that point, that hadn't been written yet.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Breakfast of Champions hadn't been written yet.
Okay.
And so I read those. So after that, I just read everything as it came out.
See, that's what's cool though. You know the order because you lived it as they came out. You know what I mean?
I don't. But no, there were probably 6 or 7 books out already before I discovered who he was.
Right.
Right. So then I read all of those.
Gotcha.
I did my best to read them in order.
Right.
But I don't know if I did or not. But Sirens of Titan, Mr. Rosewater, and Slaughterhouse-Five. I mean, 3 books that changed my life. So let's talk about books that have changed your life.
Well, that's one of them. And I went through a weird phase in my early 20s where, you're in high school and they make you read all this shit, right? And you don't get it when you're 15. And I forgot what happened. I think I was at the student union or something, and they played that old F. Scott or that old Great Gatsby movie with Robert Redford. And I was like, wow, I remember the book being more interesting than the movie. The movie wasn't bad, but it was just not, obviously not the book. So I reread that book, which I've reread pretty much almost every year to every other year for the last 30 plus years.
Wow.
I read it last summer. I'm going to read it again probably this summer. And and then I got into this thing where I was like, well, shit, I should read 1984 again. I don't think I got it. Animal Farm, I read that one again. I don't think I got it when I was 15 or 16 years old. And suddenly I'm 22, 24 years old going, wow, I didn't get this like this when I was 15. My teacher tried to tell me, and I'm kind of going, oh, okay, I'm 15, sitting next to this cheerleader. Just
right, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I was 15, yeah.
Yeah, you're just hoping she crosses her legs on game day and you get to see a little something. We had no porn back then. We had no internet. We had to work hard for our little snatches of vision. But yeah, and then now I'm blanking. Animal Farm, Brave New World, 1984, Slaughterhouse-Five, Great Gatsby, Tender is the Night, another Fitzgerald book that doesn't get a lot of attention. It's a longer book, so I don't know, maybe that's it. But those were some of the ones that like kind of stayed with me for a long time. And I read other books. There's this book that came out about 20 some years ago, and it never got big enough to make the paperback. In fact, I was talking to a musician buddy of mine last night. I'm going to loan it to him. It's still in hardcover, but it's a book called Glimpses by a guy named Louis Shiner. And you would dig this book. It's about a stereo repairman who discovers that for some reason he's having a hard time in his life. Dad's dying. Wife's about to leave him. And he discovers that he can go back in time through this stereo in his garage.
Whoa.
And he goes back in time and he helps the Beach Boys finish the Smile record. Right. and then he starts, now this is like it starts becoming a parlor trick. So then he starts thinking, well, what other significant things can I do? I helped the Doors finish Waiting for the Sun, and not the B-side thing that came out, but like the real Celebration of the Lizard rock opera they wanted to do, but Morrison was too drunk, so he went back in time and he helped Morrison sober up for at least 3 weeks just to finish the fucking record. And Morrison just got back to drinking again.
That's funny, man.
It's a great book, right? And so that really had an effect on me because of the present day in this guy's life wasn't that great, but he had this escapism, whether it was real or not. But we don't know, right? But that was a book that got to me. Fight Club, I read the novel maybe 4 times before it came out as a movie. I like the movie quite a lot. World According to Garp. I read that after the fact because I was like 17 when the movie came out, but I read it when I was about 22, 23. So there's a bunch of books, man, that just have an effect on you. And then plus, I dropped acid when I was about 25, 26 years old for the first time. That kind of expand, and I did it on purpose, and I did it to expand because I was writing lyrics and writing songs at the time. And even though I was a drummer in that one band I was in, I was writing songs on guitar. And so I didn't play them on guitar. So I would show the guitar player, these are the basic chords, not you do your thing, make your magic happen. And then the singer would sing the songs. And he and I wrote the songs in that band for the most part. And so I wanted to kind of stretch my thing. And so I started doing a little research and, watching some documentaries, and PBS had this 2-part thing, on acid, and, they talked to George Harrison, and he was sort of like, yeah, I don't know if it's going to necessarily make you a good artist, because if you're a bad artist, it just make you kind of more of a bad artist. But if something's there, it'll unlock it. And I got to kind of, okay, well, maybe I'll find out if I'm shit, so, and I was glad I did it. I did a lot of it, but it was glad I did it because it kind of changed it. It changed if it didn't enhance kind of my speaking patterns already, how I was thinking. It made me understand that how I was thinking wasn't wrong, that I wasn't weird. And it connected me to the thing, whatever, the universe or whatever you want to call it, Ralph the Head of Lettuce. But it really opened up a lot of things for me. And I didn't have a bad experience. I probably did it for over 5 years, pretty consistently. Like every 2 to 3 weeks, we'd go out to the woods and just trip. And I'd been to some great shows, on acid. Acid mushrooms was my recipe at that time.
What was your favorite acid mushroom show?
Actually, me and my buddy went to the LA. We went to Dodger Stadium, and we saw the Sugar Cubes open for Public Enemy and U2.
Oh, wow.
And so we dropped 2 hits at the time. I wouldn't do 2 hits these days. With these kids today, at the time I did 2 hits of blotter acid and a fistful of mushrooms. That was my recipe almost all the time. And so we had this is back in the day when the Dodgers used to let vendors outside of the stadium proper. You could buy hot dogs, you could buy burritos. So me and my buddy Jeff bought these burritos and cut them, stuffed mushrooms in them and just chowed them down, right? And ate the mushrooms that way. And then we did 2 hits of acid. And we started kind of coming on a little bit when the Sugar Cubes were on, and then Public Enemy came on. That was a great show. And then U2 comes on, and it was phenomenal. They were already super theatric at that time. This was during the Octung Baby Tour. And they had these cars on hydraulics going up and down, painted in fluorescent colors with the headlights replaced with spotlights and the cameras in the radiator. So you had like 8 or 9 cars going up and down on these hydraulics out of the fog. And Bono had run backstage on his intermission, came out as McFeasto, this gold lame Vegas devil with white face and little red horns and these red Elvis shoes. And then he calls the White House. He called the Bush White House at the time because he wanted to talk to George Bush, and he has a phone, and there's this speaker coming on, and White House operator's like, well, the president's not available. We're not going to take a message. He's like, no, it's nobody important, and like 80,000 people lose their shit. Oh my God. It was a great show. And then we ended up at the end of the night, there's this thing that I call the acid gods, right? So at the end of the night, we were just sitting on these 2 chairs, the seats, and just looking at everything. The band was, the roadies were tearing everything down. And then finally, these cleaning ladies were like, hey, you guys got to go. And we're like, okay. So we walked out, and then neither one of us wanted to drive. And so we sat on this railing overlooking downtown LA by where my car was. And it was still a ton of cars trying to get out of Dodger Stadium. If you've been there, it's miserable to get out of. There's only like 3 driveways or something stupid. And so me and Jeff are sitting there looking at all of downtown, and we're just talking, And when I used to do acid, I took my watch off. My watch stayed in the car. Right? It was like 13. It was like 13 o'clock all the time. I didn't give a shit what time it was. And so finally, this poor security guy. This security guard approaches us, and he's like, "Hey, man, you guys have been sitting here for a while, man. We're gonna close the gate. You got to go." And we're like, "Oh, okay." We get in the car. It's 4 a.m. Well, that was probably the best. Not counting raves and stuff like that, but that was probably the best show that I ever been to when I was high. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a lot of fun. And, okay. So, I'm going to move on here. We'll do some of these things sort of quick, I think. Mm-hmm. Like travel, like you've traveled fairly widely.
Yeah.
So what's the most interesting place you've been?
Oh man.
If you had to pick one.
Yeah, hands down the Middle East, man. Hands down when I was, and also too, the circumstances made it really edgy and.
So in Altogether Now, basically the protagonist is a version of yourself.
Yeah.
And how much did you have to fictionalize him in your mind at the time? Well,
the joke I used to always make when I was pimping the book is the first chapter is 100% true, and then by the time you get to the end of it, it's 100% bullshit. And because it's fiction, and
sure.
because I was toying with the idea, and we have a friend that passed away, Scott Chapin, and he was the one who kind of talked me into writing the book. Because he used to bug me. He used to bug me all the time. He's like, "You ever thought about writing a book?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. That's a lot." I've written articles. I had some short stories published in the '90s, and short stories are one thing, like 3 pages. And I was like, I don't know. And I the line I used to always use: you got to be possessed of a certain truth to write a fucking book, right? And then
Yeah.
he was like, well, shit, man. He goes, you're always talking about, little bits and pieces of some of the trips you take, and that Middle East trip sound kind of like it would be crazy. And I'm like, yeah, but it would just be an edgy memoir, And then he thought, well, why don't you make that a novel? And then you could do whatever you want. And so the best bits of real life that I thought played well fictionally, I left it in there. And then I made stuff up, I just made stuff up, just like, especially the last 3 or 4 chapters. If you think that really happened to me, then you're like, well, we have to have a conversation.
It got pretty wild there.
Without a spoiler alert, you got to really, but definitely the most interesting place I'd been to, because we had to take my cousin's body in, because that part was true of the book. We had to take him in through Amman, Jordan, and then take him across the border into the West Bank and deal with the Israelis there. And then, I tried to make the best of it. And I was going to be there for a few.
And
weeks,
how old were
weeks.
you at that point in time? Like
I was
20s.
I was actually 24, but for some reason I like the age 23. 23 sounded better, So 24 sounded too.
It's a prime number.
Yeah, prime. Yeah, it's just sounding. It's a good blues number. It's like a good Bo Diddley number. It's like, and 24 just sounds kind of like I was already, in grad school or something. So 23 sounded like, I just got out of school, which that wasn't untrue. I just barely got out of school. I was working at a record company. I was playing in a band that was really doing a lot of shit. We were having a good time, and I didn't want to go. I did not want to go. And my dad, I was the oldest, and he begged me to go. It was more of a show thing. He was more about like trying to make for the family. And so I went with my cousin. This guy's the guy's brother. He's a good guy. And, but yeah, that's the impetus. But yeah, it was interesting because I'd never been anywhere like that. And it wasn't like France on a Eurail pass, or like, you go to Dominican or you go to Mexico or something. It's just, there's some, we went to Cuba a few years back. That was interesting. Cuba was a great place. I had a great time in Cuba. And kind of like the Middle East, it wasn't like all set and standard and like Disneyfied. You're running around and eating the food and smelling the smells and meeting the people, and there's no you don't have a guarantee of what's going to happen. Our buddy Jerry that we're talking about, our second to last day there, we thought we were going to die because we took this little tour, and this guy, for $20 or what we gave him, and he gets on a horse cart and takes us into the fucking jungle, and we're going up and up in this hill on a 2-horse cart. And then, we start hiking, I'm talking like Nicaragua type, Pablo Escobar jungle shit. Right. And he has us meet this dude, this guy sitting in a little hutch he made out of trees and banana leaves. And he's
sounds like Marlon Brando in the
dude. It's like Apocalypse Now. Yeah. And so he's like mashing coffee, and I'm shooting the shit with him in Spanish. Right. And all of a sudden, and Jerry will tell you this, it was scary as fuck because we were going, oh, I guess this is the time we're going to die. All of a sudden, these guys start coming down the hill with machetes, clearing the fucking way with machetes. And I'm like, oh, are we going to go to the lake? Because we're supposed to go to this lake to go cliff jumping off this lake, right? And the guy's like, claro que sí, amigos. Yeah, un lago son bonita and all this crap. And I'm going, okay, what's with the dudes in the machetes, man? It's like, are they going to rob us and chop us and feed us to the poor? It was like really scary. And then they showed up, and they just were taking a break, and they're buying coffee from this hutch guy. So we're just shooting the shit, drinking his coffee. It was like really thick black coffee. And then we went jumping in the lake for a couple of hours, and the guy was selling us, mojitos. Another guy had a hutch making mojitos, for a couple of bucks a pop. And anyway, it was for about 10 minutes. It was pretty spooky though. I was like, we're gonna get hit. We're gonna get whacked here, man. This is like total, this is like Sandinista shit here. I think, or Contras, depending on your perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a few minutes though. But, so like, what else you got in mind?
Okay, here's what I got. Okay, a couple of different things. I'd love to talk about your original reason to move to Austin, but also you're I would call you an independent thinker. That I think that if there's somebody whose counsel you keep the most, it's your own. That's how I think about you.
Yeah.
But do you have like any specific people, 1 or 2 or 3 people that you think these are the philosophers or the political scientists or the leaders or the historical figures who have influenced you?
You mean personally or out in the world?
Yeah, no, you personally. No, people that you think, you know, this the way I think today and the way I look at stuff have been. These are some of my real influences. People that honestly I can look and say, you know, they had a positive influence on me.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would think it's positive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a handful of people. I mean, you know, and people think I don't think people have listened to him. So when I say this, they think I'm just being glib. But Pete Townsend from The Who, I mean, he wrote lyrics that were so nuanced and so like just, you know, like not average. You know, it was almost like literature. And you had to really listen. Like you listen to a song like Tattoo, right? And like it's just about these two guys growing up. You know, me and my brother were talking to each other about what makes a man a man. Who writes that shit at 21 years old?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he had a big influence on me. The entire Quadrophenia album had an influence on me, huge influence on me, saved my life. Some of the writers we talked about, some of the fiction authors we talked about, and then contemporary, definitely Chris Hedges. I've read every book he's ever written last 15, 18 years. Big time influence on me. And one of those guys that made me know I wasn't crazy. Cornel West, big influence, you know. And then artistically, you know, writers like now I'm spacing. Guy that wrote Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, Marathon Man, It'll Hit Me in a Second. William Goldman. That guy had a big influence on me because he was such a prolific writer. He would write his novels and then he would get the deal to write the screenplay. And so he would write the movie. And that's why they're usually pretty good because he wrote the screenplay of his own novel.
Exactly,
so it wasn't going to suck. But yeah.
And then he even wrote books about how he did it.
Yeah. That's a great book, by the way. I highly recommend that. But yeah, man. But yeah, as far as people out there, and then I you're right to a large degree. I keep my own counsel. I think I'm concerned with fewer people than most on what they think. You know, like when I was playing in a band, I only trusted 4 or 5 people. You know, so if people said, "Hey, you guys are great" or whatever, I didn't really believe them. You know, I believe these same 4 or 5 guys. You know, if we had a great show, they would tell me we had a great show, and they would tell me what we did better. I trusted those guys. And then, like in my life, I mean, only again a handful of people. You know, not to blow smoke, but you're one of them. You know, we have some friends in common that are on that list. I got a couple of friends of mine. You know, I won't name their names because I don't want to get them in trouble, but. I'll text them every now and again. You know, they're kind of part of my conscience. You know, what keeps my conscience like when I know I'm on the right track. And if I'm off the beaten path a little bit, well, I'm off the beaten path anyway. But like as far as what I want to be, the path I want to be on, you know, there's a handful of people in my life that kind of keep me straight. But as far as authors and all that, for sure, the guys I talked about. You know.
Okay, so favorite movie actor.
Favorite actor, man. Shoot, that'd have to be
just one of them. One of your favorite actors.
Val Kilmer.
Have to be
Val Kilmer. Yeah.
I had a funny. If you look right here, it says Val Kilmer. and there's a different question of mine. It says favorite actors and one of your favorite movies, but then it was your very favorite Val Kilmer role.
Well, Tombstone for sure. Even though that's highly fictionalized, but yeah, Tombstone for sure. And he was great in The Doors. He should have been nominated.
See,
the movie was so-so.
Are the 2 movies. And that you and I, the 2 people that I know, that walked out of that movie, and after he wasn't nominated, thought
I was pissed.
That's the biggest BS.
I was pissed. And when he wasn't nominated for Tombstone, I was pissed. I was pissed. I go, what does he got? Who does he got to sleep with to get nominated? I mean, the guy should have at least been nominated. And then a few years later, I was reading an article in Vanity Fair because he was promoting that movie, The Saint, that he did.
Yes,
it was really great. It was a great excuse to show off his impersonation skills because he played everybody. But
I've seen it. I watched it.
Yeah, it wasn't a great film, but
I remember the TV show. Do you remember the TV show?
with Roger Moore. Yeah. And but so in the movie or in the article of Vanity Fair, she asked him about the Tombstone role. And it was interesting because this is why this guy's an actor, right? This is what he does. This is his craft, right? He explained to her, he goes, well, I'd seen every Tombstone movie. I'd seen a bunch of them. When I got the role, I went and watched every Tombstone movie, and I didn't want to play Doc Holliday the same way. This tough guy with a heavy Southern accent, not sounding too smart, kind of like, hey, I'm gonna drill you full of holes, kind of thing. So he did some research and discovered that the guy was raised in Atlanta, right? Southern gentleman, came from a slaveholder family, a lot of money. Mom sent him to Yale for dental school. So here's an aristocratic kid, goes to dental school, and he goes to Yale, right? So he's not stupid. And then finds out he's got tuberculosis. And it's one of those things, if you only knew you had so long to live, what would you do? Drink whiskey, learn how to shoot, and play cards. And so he went to Arizona, and he went to all those drier places because of his tuberculosis. And so Val Kilmer figured out that this guy wouldn't really talk like that. Right. And he wouldn't really act like these guys. He would be this more of a genteel, aristocratic bearing, right? And he explained that, and I was like, wow, I never would have thought of that. I probably would have watched every Tombstone movie and done what Kirk Douglas did. I wouldn't have done what he did. But that's why he's such a great actor.
Well, the thing I saw an interview with him about it was he went to that certain part of Atlanta and got trained in the accent by some old timer there or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he had fun with it because because I read the script by Kevin Jarre. I own that script.
Oh, wow.
The same guy that wrote Glory, by the way. And every word that Val Kilmer said in that movie was written by that guy. But Val Kilmer made it look so easy. It looks like he's ad-libbing. It doesn't even look like he's reading a script. Right?
Oh, no, yeah.
And so, but the trick about that, though, is like with Doc Holliday in real life, and I've seen a ton of documentaries on these guys, the Wyatt Earp story. And every one of these experts, everyone to the man, believes that until OK Corral, he never shot a person in his life. He talked a lot of shit, and he was fast, and he could shoot cans off of a pole. But his reputation would scare people enough that they wouldn't fuck with him. And it wasn't until OK Corral, because his girlfriend at the time, the girlfriend in the movie, she said that he cried in his hotel room for 3 days after he shot those guys. Now, if you're used to killing people,
no, you don't cry about it.
You're not going to cry about it, right? You've done it before. Right. But when you finally see it go down, you're going to lose your shit, right? And that's kind of what happened to him. So his reputation kind of preceded him that he kind of invented. But Val Kilmer was so great in that movie, man. It's ridiculous.
Oh, okay. So 2008, my daughter, Jessica, who was in law school in South Florida, calls me up. Daddy, I had turned on to Lucinda Williams. You know Lucinda?
Oh, yeah.
She goes, Daddy, Lucinda Williams is playing at the Blues, one of the Blues hotel, whatever the name of that place is, in New Orleans on Monday, blah, blah, blah. Will you take me? Because I'm moving to California after law school. So who knows when I'll get a chance. So then she gets me to talk her fiance into going with us. So we go to New Orleans to see Lucinda.
Yeah.
Turns out, I got a buddy there who sets everything up for us. Turns out it's Mardi Gras weekend.
Oh, wow.
It's Monday. It's the Monday before Fat Tuesday.
Okay.
So we go in, and my buddy, Walter, he does all his arrangement. He brings us to where they set up the parades.
Right.
Like the staging ground for all the parades. And so we're there. And one of the grand marshals that year was Val Kilmer. Okay, so I have
That's
a
hilarious.
Val Kilmer grand marshal coin that's got to be somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Right.
Because but if and when I find it, I'm going to gift it to you.
Ah, shit. I'll frame it. If you do that, I'll frame it. I'll frame it. If you find it, I'll frame it.
But I probably will. It's got to be here because it's not something I would have ever thrown away.
Yeah,
but it's been through a couple of stories.
Yeah.
Cycles.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so we should wrap up here.
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes left. So yeah,
Okay, favorite sport?
Football.
Football?
Yeah, I love baseball. I love basketball, and I know the CTE and everything, and I feel guilty now watching football, but I still like football.
Wow. the sporting event historically that you were most excited about seeing, whether it was live or on TV?
Wow. Kirk Gibson, World Series.
So you were most
the A's.
excited about seeing it after it or going into it?
Okay, I'm misunderstanding the question. Say that again.
No. Well, were you most excited about seeing it after it happened or going into that?
Oh, well, going into it, in 2000, me and my buddy went to 2 Game 7s. The Lakers got into the finals. And this is after a 4 or 5 year drought where they were in the desert with no manna at all. Like they were just gone, right? And then we bought tickets the summer before. LA Times ran an ad in 1999. If you bought tickets for the 2000 post-game series, you're paying $15 a ticket. And if they don't go to the finals, you don't get anything, right? So me and my buddy bought 2 Game 7s to the quarterfinals and the semifinals.
Whoa!
Right, and that was badass.
And they both went to Game 7.
And they both went to Game 7 against Phoenix and Portland. And Shaq and Kobe did the alley-oop. And I've never been in a theater that loud in my life. Like the stadium was just – it was louder than you know how loud those sound systems are. This was louder than any sound system. I mean, the crowd was loud. You couldn't even hear the music. That's how loud the crowd was. It was like putting your head in a jet engine. It just was like insane. If the Lakers said, let's go invade Poland right now, everybody would have gone to invade right now. It was just like everyone lost their shit. It was like, because they were coming from behind both times. It didn't look like they were going to do it. And then they got their momentum back, and that second win came with the alley-oops, and you're like, oh my God. That was the best moment. And then just after the fact kind of thing, I didn't know I was going to see it. I was watching on TV, obviously. But Kirk Gibson hitting that.
So what was that, like 88?
88 World Series against the A's.
Wow.
And yeah, it was pretty crazy, you know. Because if you saw that in a movie, the only thing that would have made that more perfect was if it was the last game of the series, which it wasn't. But it kept them alive.
Right.
You know?
Oh yeah, no, it kept them alive.
Kept them alive.
Yeah. And so didn't he do something spectacular in the semi-playoff, in the finals? Like the division championships?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
Didn't he do something? He closed the Mets out or something?
I think
it was a home run by him for that.
Yeah, I think it was a home run, but it wasn't like my legs broke.
He was. Oh yeah.
Yeah, 3-2. You know, it's 3-2 count. My leg's broken. His bases loaded. Bottom of the ninth. I mean, if you wrote this in a movie, people would call bullshit on you. There's just no fucking way.
And the other hero of that series, Oral Hershiser.
Oh yeah, big
right.
Time.
I mean, that was like he's like the quietest, most dominant hero of all time.
Absolutely. I met that guy when I was in grad school. I worked at this restaurant. And he came in with his family, big time Mormon guy. Right at the time, he had like 7 kids or 6. Young guy. He's like a couple of our buddies that, you know, are in that faith where they're raising basically a mafia clan, right? and he had like 6 or 7 kids at that time. He's probably got like 19 now. But yeah, he nicest guy. Would come in totally unassuming, get a table with the family, his mom, his in-laws, whatever, and just nice guy, man. Really, really cool guy. Mensch of a guy. Some people I've met that were famous weren't very cool. He was awesome.
Yeah, I think it's probably. I always cut famous people a benefit of the doubt because
they get accosted all the time.
I mean, like one time I just gotten back to New York and my daughter was working downtown. One of my daughters, I got 2 of them. So we went up to see. We took the subway to go see the Yankees together that night. So I had put my luggage in her trunk of the car. End of the night, she's driving me around the corner, a few blocks up, and I'm going to get in Penn Station and go out to Jersey to my sister's house. Blah blah blah. I'm early. I'm a half hour early for the train, so I said, just drop me off here. I'm a block away. I'm getting my bag out of the case. As I'm putting my bag down on the thing, I look up, and there's this beautiful woman walking towards me. I'm like, oh. And I'm looking at her and I'm checking her out from from the sidewalk up. And then this guy with her, he's sort of not particularly good looking, but he has this interesting, and I realize it's Bob Dylan because he had that, it was Bob Dylan's nose. I'm like,
yeah,
holy mackerel.
Yeah.
So I look right at him and he looks right at me. And I smiled and I decided I'm not saying nothing.
Yeah, just yeah. I've gotten when I was a kid, I thought I wanted them. I had a couple of autographs, and then I kind of got like, I don't really want an autograph. And I worked in the record business for a while, worked in the film business for a little while, and I just never thought. I just didn't, even like I got a buddy of mine used to do comedy with me in LA. He moved out here about 4 years ago, and him and his wife, and we'll go see shows. And, we went and see Jimmy Dore a couple of times, right? And that theater is jam-packed. And at the end, everyone's lining up, wanting to get a picture, an autograph. And me and my buddy are like, you really want one? Nah, not really. I dug the show. I dig him. No one's going to really believe I know the guy. I got a picture with him. So what? Right? It's not like we're buddies. Right? And so I was always sort of like whatever about that. Like I saw, like the couple of times I got talked into pictures with people when I was working in the record business, it was kind of against my will. Right. And I'm kind of glad I did it. But then I was sort of going, yeah, I don't really know Elton John. It's a nice picture when I had hair, but I don't know the guy. It's like, and he was really friendly, totally nice guy. And in the picture, it looks like he knows me. He's like making some funny face. He's, gripping my shoulder and leaning in. But I was just like, yeah, I don't know the guy. We met for about 14 seconds. He was a good bloke, but that was that was the end of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's funny though. But that's really true. Is that, my daughter, who's a filmmaker now, right?
Right.
And now she calls me up one time. She was in a room like discussing the script with Sharon Stone,
right,
Christopher Walken, Rosie Perez, John Turturro.
Yeah. And
she comes out of this room and she was one of 3 people who weren't one of the actors, right?
Right.
And she comes out, she goes, "Oh, Dad," she goes, it's just the funniest thing in the world. But she used to yell at me when she was a kid because she used to have play dates. We lived downtown Manhattan. She had play dates with Harvey Keitel's daughter.
Wow.
And I'd go, "That's Harvey Keitel." And she goes, "Dad, he's just a person." And
he's just a dude.
Like 8 years old, right?
And back in the day, we'll start wrapping up here in a second. But like back in the day when I was working in the film business, it was a comedy of errors. I was going to stop playing music, and I thought, I need a quote real job. So I thought the film business was more responsible. That's how fucked up people from LA are. It's like, it's more responsible. Let's go work in the film business. It's more responsible. And so I ended up working with this guy. I don't want to name his name because I don't want people going after him. But we had a nice deal at Sony, and it lasted about 3 years. And being around that on a regular basis where, in and out of each other's pocket, whatever, we'd go to some comedy club or whatever. And it was like that TV show Entourage. It was really crazy. Like people would just swarm him. And, the 3 of us, it was like these other 3 guys, we were just like hanging out. But we would get all this fall off because, you know him? Yes, I happen to be his director of development, actually. I can show you. It was that kind of shit, right? And then it was almost like being in a band again without having to be in a band, right? And then when that ended, and I was back to being a mortal again, and had to rely on my own wiles to hunt and, kill what I eat. I didn't have that head start.
I mean, my only sort of, actually, I guess I have 2 sort of, maybe 3 similar experiences. Is one, I ran the natural food store. Mm-hmm. So I was the guy. And then another, I was in the seminar business. And I used to travel around the country and do seminars for the company I used to work with. Mm-hmm. And one time, and this was like the first time it happened to me in my life, right, but a woman comes up and says, "I'm in room such and such," and gives me your freaking hotel key. I'm like,
that happened to me at Sundance. That's a good feeling. And because we're guys, ever since we were 12 years old, we're plotting and scheming, right? We don't get shit. And girls, ever since they grew boobs at 12, they became David Bowie overnight. Like everybody wants to be nice to them. Everybody's nice to girls all the time. The most average girl, if she's got a good personality, will have sex with pretty much whoever she wants. Whereas you could be Keanu Reeves, and if you fuck up, those panties come up really quick. And I got a ton of girlfriends in LA with stories like that. Well, I thought he was gonna, but then he stunk. But it was so and so. Yeah, but he smelled funny. Whoa, like chance of a lifetime. And you said, well, yeah, because that's just gross. I'm like, guys don't do that. Guys don't do that. Like Jennifer Aniston, Halle Berry could be a Nazi, and you'd still rationalize trying to get in there, right? Like that's how guys are, man. Well, hey, listen, man. We went a little bit double today, but dude, thank you so much for doing this, man. It was a good idea. It was a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad you had fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It's nice to be on the other end of it a little bit and not have to.
Yeah, I know. Not be responsible for anything. Listen,
guys,
thanks for taking me up on it. It came to me the last time we were doing the other version. I was like, man, you know what? There we go.
Yeah, man. Well,
listen, brother.
I love having you on, man. You're an interesting dude, so that's why it's just more fun.
Well,
right?
I always enjoy conversing with you.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey guys, we're going to wrap this up. Again, visit patreon.com/The Bitter Truth, and you can do all the stuff that we talked about before. And I don't think today's show is particularly edgy or anything. We're just a couple of guys chopping it up. But if this stuff does make you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.